Hello and welcome to the Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of September 6, 2023 or June. And I'm going to guess it's probably more June-ish, but this latest submission said September. A previous said June of 2023. If she knew better than June, we're probably a little bit more likely to be June. And that could be just feeling more out. Sometimes when you get the first inkling of something, you get a little bit more information and then you get, oh, this really is what I thought it was, or something like that. So we have a date of marriage of 1984. She has an off and on who is a high energy replayer. And this is a really good question because it's something that we kind of struggle with, isn't it? She says, how can you show grace in preparation for a mediated financial settlement when after such a long marriage, your MLCer is trying to cut your share of the assets down to 25% instead of 50% and continues their affair with a woman who would be mistaken for his daughter? Any questions put to him regarding his management of our finances has resulted in angry reactions, although not strictly legal, the cessation of spousal maintenance, such as the cessation of spousal maintenance. Also, how do you show grace when they won't reply to polite requests to make arrangements to clear their long accumulated belongings from their house and garage? And it may fall to you to throw out or sell items which are previously treasured. I know that this is also a push, but clearing his left behind belongings will be a burden both financially and otherwise. He's been a very brave keyboard warrior, but can't face me. It's been over a year. Or come to the house that we built. Okay, so there's a few things here. First, this is all about how do we show grace when we're having to set boundaries? How do we show grace when we're having to be firm? How do we show grace when we're doing things the other person doesn't like? And so, first thing, I want us to understand that grace doesn't mean they're going to agree that you're being gracious or graceful or anything to do with grace. They won't interpret your actions that way. It doesn't mean that that's not what you're being. So similar to when you're disciplining your children, not that I want it to be a parental relationship here, but let's look at the analogy. Your children, your 17-year-old or 16-year-old, when you get mad at them and tell them that they are grounded and they cannot go to the prom because of whatever they did that was horrible. It's prom, so make it horrible. And they stomp around and they yell, I hate you. But did you do the right thing? If whatever they did was really bad, you probably did the right thing. You needed to take away a privilege. But you still love them. And maybe you didn't do what you did out of malice. Maybe you did it out of protection. Maybe instead of saying they couldn't go to the prom because something they did, maybe there's something dangerous going on. Maybe the prom is still going on, but there's curfews at night in your area and that danger has been ramped up and very few people are actually brave enough to go. And there's been threats to your own family maybe. And you're like, no, hon, I'm really sorry. We can't risk it. You know, maybe you're a public figure and you've had kidnapping threats on your children. Just making stuff up, obviously, but there are reasons where it's not their sin. But you're doing something somebody else doesn't like. You're preventing them from doing it out of love. Okay? But it's they don't want to, and they're going to, I hate you now. I don't want, because you're an obstacle in their way. And so that's the same thing here. You do it anyway, and you don't worry. And I know you do worry, but you do it with without worrying about what they are going to do about it, in the sense of how they're going to feel or judge you. Now, the worries that you would have are how they're going to retaliate. Are they going to retaliate by taking you to court and costing you more money? That makes sense, because would it cost you more? Are they going to retaliate with violence? That would cost you more. But you don't want to take their hurt feelings into account, because they're choosing to have those hurt feelings. So you show grace for their immediate financial settlement, and he is choosing to cut your share of the assets. You set a boundary, and he's trying to cut your share of the assets, but that's not something he gets to do, is it? You live in community property state or area, and it's a written rule and law that there's a 50-50. And sure, sometimes there's different ways of splitting that. It's not always precise. But he doesn't get to cut that down. And that's too bad. And you have a lawyer. And so you don't let him bully you. And you go in and you can do well, you know what? Even if it is a dismissive one, I'm sorry you feel that way. But here's the other thing I want you to do is I want you to look up on YouTube and get this book. Look up, I think they changed their name from the Black Swan Group. So I will look up the name in the, and I'll put it in a reference to it in the link, in the description below. Because it used to be called the Black Swan Group on YouTube, but recently I noticed they changed their name. But I want you to look up Chris Voss, the author Chris Voss, Voss. He wrote Never Split the Difference. I want you to get this book. Library it, get it from Amazon, wherever. I highly recommend this book. I recommend it all the time. And you're going into negotiations. So this is the book for negotiations. Never Split the Difference. Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Chris Voss was a hostage negotiator. FBI, I believe. And when I read this book, it's not geared toward relationships. I actually wish he would write one that was really for that. And he goes into companies and teaches them negotiation skills based on what he had to do with hostage negotiations. And he uses what he has termed tactical empathy. But really what it is we root everything in empathy. We root everything in grace as well. And to me, grace is give radical acceptance, compassion, and empathy. And I want you to be grace, do grace. Everything is infused with grace. And think of that as everything is infused with empathy. And not the empathy that is giving of your heart so much that you become sick and ill with it, where you can't, you sponge in. It's not that. It's kindness. It's the agape and it can be hard to do. It's universal love. It's all of these things. That's give radical acceptance, compassion, and empathy. And none of that means you don't give boundaries. None of it means you don't give tough love. None of it means he can tell. You walk in there and you are stone-faced, but you are also firm, but you are not firm like this. You are not firm in a demanding way. When we demand, we're doing it out of our fear. Demand is out of fear, and commanding, when we're being commanding, we're being a leader. We are being confident. People look at us and they want to follow a commander. A demander is a 2-year-old in the terrible twos and in its tantrums, making demands on us. My children come up to me and say, "Give me some milk." And I look at them and say, "How do you ask me?" And then they know. They say, may I have a glass of milk, please? I say, okay, I'll get you some milk. But they know, hey, I don't do demands. You may ask nicely. So this is how you are approaching him. You come to the mediation table. You're polite, you're kind. He might be mean. You're polite, you're kind, but you are firm, you're forceful. You do not let him bully you. And this is something that I want you to practice in the mirror if you need to. Because that doesn't, if you've been let him bully you before, it might be hard. And you have to keep your emotions in check. Grace doesn't mean that you are emotional. Love is, sure, it can be an emotion, but it's also an action. It's a choice. It's what we do with it and how we process these things. So I don't want you to get bogged down in how to be grace, because grace isn't a doormat. So you're going to do this, and this book will teach you. It talks about sitting across the negotiation table. And that's why I think this is perfect for the mediation kinds of settings. Because here it is. How are you going to do that? He gives you this offer of 25% or less, maybe. He puts it across the table to you. How am I supposed to do that? That's Chris's question. How are you supposed to do that? That is not a good, you don't look at him and say, this is a lousy offer. So I want you to read this because you're going to learn how to respond to these, to his offers, that sort of thing. Okay. Then the YouTube channel has more sound bites. So some of the pieces that are in here, you can get more information from the YouTube channel. Look up things like getting to know, N-O, or know informed questions, answer questions, questions that are about no. There's so many different ways to phrase it to get you the right way. The YouTube title is Negotiation Mastery as one word. And when you're on somebody's YouTube channel, you can actually search just that YouTube channel. There's a little search button that is below the regular YouTube search and below their banner. It says Home Video Shorts Live Playlist Posts, and then there's a little, if you didn't know that, you could search only that channel in there. And so I'm just testing that. So I just put getting to know N-O in there, and you will get a few videos that are about no-oriented questions. So using no to quickly persuade people, mastering, I'm reading the titles, mastering negotiation techniques, getting to know first, the art of getting a no, how to use yes or no questions. You are the perfect question for this because it is a mediation. Okay. I recommend it for other pieces, but it gives phrases, it gives questions. And remember how I've talked about the danger of questions. He gives the questions to ask, or how to ask them, or the phrasings. Okay. And this is why I think this book is really important. So I want you to think about that. Then your next piece. Okay. So you're saying this is, how can I do this while he's continuing his affair? And then you point out with someone who is so young, she can be mistaken for his daughter. Okay. I'm sorry. I know that it's really painful because I've been through the affair. She wasn't younger, but I've been through the affair. Okay. And that hurts. But you have to put the emotion and the betrayal and the scorned, hurt person aside, because we're going to deal with the business of it. And how can I be grace when he hurt me? Because the 25 to 50% is one thing, and the affair piece is the other. So this is we're doing the affair piece now. How can I be grace when he hurt me? And he's still doing it. When he's still hurting me. So what else would you be? Okay. What are the other options? Let's look at them. You could be scorned. Would that be better? Now remember, we're not putting an action in grace. We're just how we approach with an attitude. So you're going to go into this mediation, and should you be scorned, what is going to happen to you and he as you mediate when you were scorned? Should you treat him with derision? How about you come in as the victim or as the bully victim who you're allowing him to bully you? Somebody who he could just walk all over you, a doormat. Okay, well, whatever you want. I guess I can't do anything about it. How's that going to work? Because what are you going to get in the end from that? 25%, right? Plus, you're going to end up paying for all of the stuff that you're going to have to get rid of later. It's not going to do you any good. Now, I'm not telling you that grace is going to do well on his end. He's going to still try to bully you. He's going to try to upset you. He's going to try to get you to react. All of those things, as well as his lawyer. They are going to, and his lawyer is going to try to fight for his case. And hopefully, if your lawyers are there, your lawyer's there to protect you. And we're going to keep it to business. Okay, so do not bring up the other person. Just, I know it's hard, but you set that aside. You don't bring her up. She isn't a part of this. So then if you didn't want her in your marriage, and I know you don't, then don't insert her into the mediation. Get her out of it. Right now, you're giving her too much energy. Okay. So any questions put to him regarding his management of your finances has resulted in angry reactions, although not strictly legal, such as the cessation of spousal maintenance. Stop asking questions. Now, he's going to teach you how to ask questions, but those might not be the questions you're supposed to ask anyways. A lot of his questions are across the mediation table. What Chris Voss had to do was he had to gain the trust of those of kidnappers, whether it was a bank robber who was in a bank for a few hours and had some hostages, or whether it was the kind who hijacked planes and had people for months. And he did probably both. I think he had some examples of the months kind, where he had to develop a relationship with the bad guys, and they were really bad guys. Over months and months, he had to develop a relationship where they trusted him. And this was through empathy. He had to get in their mind and figure out, why are they doing this? Why are they against us? What is it? And he had to think like them in the sense of, why do they feel so badly? If I can have empathy for this, they took these people hostages, and probably maybe in that sense, it's maybe not because of who they are and like, I don't like you, but it's who they are and they're, you're an American or you're from this country, that sort of thing. And so what did that country do that upset them and hurt them so badly? Oh, you're this way because my country, this country, killed your father. I'm very sorry that happened to you. And you can feel for the child inside. And so he's building empathy. For a bad guy, you can have empathy for the bad guy in the sense that the bad guy was once a little boy or a little girl. Okay? And so we want you to understand the empathy. And it's easier for you in this sense because you love the person that you're sitting across the table from. You might not really want to feel love for the monster, but the person inside there, your spouse, you love them. So any questions regarding, you don't ask those. I know you want them, and I know you want it like, hey, this doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this to me? And you need to get this done. Why have you done it this way? This isn't fair. Why aren't you being responsible? All those. Stop. You just don't ask them. And when they are being like this, sometimes you have to go through lawyers, which is a terrible thing for me to say because that costs a lot. And sometimes you can't. But asking the questions is going to bring more resistance and more anger. And so it's not going to get you anywhere. You have to learn what not to ask, what not to say, and how to say things, how to bring things up, and probably not in question form. Okay? Okay. How do you show grace when they won't reply to polite requests? Okay, right there. There's that word requests. You say polite. He says, she's bothering me. Why can't she get out of my life? Requests to make arrangements to clear their long accumulated belongings. And because he doesn't want to be bothered with it. Why is she bothering me? Oh my God, can she just get out of here? It's like a fly that won't swat away. That's all. And he just doesn't want to be bothered. And it doesn't matter how polite you are. He's an MLCer. And sometimes it sucks, but the answer is because that's a midlife crisis, or because he's stuck in angry mode, or whatever his brain's doing that is keeping him angry. That isn't your fault. Understand that. It's him. Okay? So, but he won't reply to polite requests. You have to understand that in midlife crisis, no, they don't reply to polite requests or rude requests or any of those. What they might no, I'm not going to say reply. I'm going to say react, and I don't mean react as in the bad reaction. They might act in accordance with court orders. You are hereby ordered to do this, or the consequences will be. That is the thing. Because first thing, it's not you. You have kicked it up to another level. And there's a consequence that gives you the right to apply this consequence. The right goes on to you. Now, the next thing that comes with that consequence, and you have to talk to your lawyers about this and find out where you can do things. Okay? And this is important. And you might not be able to do anything before a divorce is finalized. It's unfair, it's stupid, and I hate it. I want to scream about it being unfair. It depends on the state or the country. And I'm not the law. I can't change it. Okay. But there are some things where you are, if you own the house and he owns the house and you're married, you might not be able to do anything like sell off the stuff. I don't know. I'm sure some places are different. Okay. So the stuff is accumulating. I know this is a push, but clearing his left behind will be a burden financially and otherwise. So you put a timeline on it, and first you make sure what you're legally allowed to do. Now, you may go through the courts and you have the court do an order, or you just send it to him and you state that this has been backed by the court, and maybe get your lawyer signed or something so that it is official. The courts have been notified about this. So that, and maybe notarized. I don't know. Okay. You have until this time to do this, to get your stuff. I will make this, I will make the house available at these times, or you must call me and make arrangements. So they have to be set. You can't just walk in unless you allow that. And if you do not do it by this time and date, you forfeit all items that have been left behind. At that time, all assets that have been left become mine, and I will sell them off, and any proceeds are mine. So it could be that. And let's see, you also said financially and otherwise would be a burden. Any cost incurred upon having things removed, I'll split 50-50. I will give you will pay for half those costs. I will put half of those costs onto the divorce decree or whatever, that sort of thing. Get your lawyers on approval on how that would work. That would be what I would do, or what I would talk to my attorneys about how that can be done. You don't go to him for these, because first thing, in the beginning, yeah, you try, but you've tried. No, it's not working. He's a brave keyboard warrior. We can't face you. So you need to stop doing that, because you might not think you're hounding him. But remember, he interprets and you interpret, and you interpret two things differently. He interprets your actions as you weren't being gracious, or you weren't being grace-filled. You were being a bitch. And you know what? Maybe you were being both, because sometimes you had to go into absolute bitch mode, which is really just saying, yeah, I was being a firm, empowered, and assertive woman. And that's what you call a bitch. But you know what? That doesn't mean that is. I mean, my dog's a really nice lady, but technically she's the bitch. She's a dog. And so he's going to say it one way. Doesn't mean that's really how it is. And so I want you to not worry about his judgment on it. Okay? It's going to be hard for you. But you're like, he can't face you. It's the house we built. I know that's hard, but we have to take the emotion and detach from it right now so that you could face this mediation. Okay? I don't know when it is, but, I really recommend the book. You could listen to it, do an audio if you don't have a lot of time. I like to listen to them on double time. So, okay. I hope that's helpful.